So we make the most of it. Really got off to a great start with our formals last night. But how about you guys with the prime location, I think?
Awesome.
I don't know if it's good to be by the door or not, but yeah, I can tell you that the respect level for PA in this room, you can feel it. It's palpable.
Come on. It's all based on wins the team has the previous year. Okay?
Well,
I mean, I could go down that road too, man.
After 13 in year one, I think we were over there in the corner
because
somewhere.
we didn't need any high-end decision makers walking through the door. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So with the Combine and specifically quarterbacks, and I want to ask you about the importance of them throwing here.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not super into these stories or whatever, but since we're at the Combine, you'll read so-and-so and so-and-so are not going to throw at the Combine. You're a former quarterback, and you call plays. So I mean, you know what you're looking for in these individuals. With quarterbacks choosing not to throw here, does that matter much?
You know what? I think I would listen. I would love for all the guys to show up and throw and compete a little bit on the field. That's what this has really been built for, is that on-field workout to pair with the medical evaluations and obviously the formal interview, informal interview process that goes on here. But every prospect, every player is entitled to kind of choose their own path. I mean, every single one of these guys is going to end up throwing either at their pro days in front of every football team or the individual workouts throughout the month, of March and early April. So as far as the public evaluation, maybe the media evaluation of some of these players, it sure does go a long way to have them all throwing on the field. I just know I don't really view it as a negative. I don't think anything negative can come out of throwing. You think of C.J. Stroud last year coming here and putting on a show and really, really solidifying himself. Anthony Richardson, kind of a lot of the guys over the years that have done it. It normally works out really well because guess what? These guys, not a shocker here, happen to be very talented and can show up and sling it around and put on a show.
But that's not necessarily the case every year with quarterbacks, right?
No.
I mean, they may have a certain degree of talent, but it's I'm just starting to become an early believer when certain people or certain auras jump up. Like before 2020, we were hearing greatest wide receiver draft in the history of the NFL coming. Okay, Vikings get JJ and so on, all the way down to Darnell Mooney and Gabe Davis. I'm like, damn. I mean, they nailed that. I mean, I want to see a couple of seasons, but last year, tight ends we were hearing this time.
Yeah.
And Laporta, Kincaid, Musgrave, you had Sims in the offseason. He ended up going active for several games. Well, we're hearing that about offensive tackles and quarterbacks this year.
Yep.
So, I mean, this could be a year like there could be Friday and or Saturday quarterbacks taken. You raise them, you wait a little bit, then they actually might be good, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it seems to be a class that obviously, we've heard a lot about, those top guys, and rightly so. I mean, their film and their body of work speaks, so highly of who they are as players and their makeup and their ability to uplift teams and everything that goes along with this evaluation process. But, yes, there's always going to be those down-the-line guys that whether it's Friday, Saturday, you may feel at that point in time in the draft that it's the right card to pull because of your faith in their development, your staff to develop a quarterback, and then the players that are going to be around walking in the door, at TCO. So totally a great point that you make, and I think it's going to be a draft. It feels, I don't know whether, I've tried to, whether it's the COVID year that allowed guys to get extra time. Yep. It just feels like a deep draft to me. It feels like a,
You mean overall?
Overall,
yeah.
Just we're not all the way through the process, but I can tell you, just turning on the tape, a lot of coaches are excited across multiple positions about having some real options to really, enhance our team.
Now, Kevin, you've been here as a player, right?
Yep.
As a position coach.
Oh yeah.
As a coordinator, and now a head coach. Tell me a little bit about kind of maybe each level and what is it like now to finally be that guy? Because you mentioned not, and I understand you not wanting to walk around because there's so many people that want to talk to you, and a lot of them is just they're looking for work. I've been here, as a coach as a position, and as a coach looking for work, right, and all those things. But tell me about now. What is it like now for you, and what did you learn, let's say, as a player going through this, and then as a position and coordinator? Ultimately, what makes you a better head coach now because you've been through this process in so many different levels.
I do. I think that's a great point, is having been through it as a player. And the schedule was different back then.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more of a grinding schedule. It is a long week for these guys, but as far as when the workouts were and some of the early morning stuff, the late night meetings, it was really built to as almost a stress test.
Yeah.
And I think they've done a nice job kind of pulling that back a little bit, making it a little bit more digestible for the guys to be at their best throughout the entirety of the week. But I do think that helps me having gone through it, having sat in those formals. A lot of times my role in that formal, I'm really looking for guys that love football, that are tough, that are smart, that really when they get a chance to start talking about football, they get excited. They start jumping out of their chair. And a lot of times it does take a little bit of an icebreaker. They come in the room, you shake their hands, you give them a smile. Hey, relax, man. This is going to be talking football. You've been doing this your whole life. And a lot of times you can, in that 15 minutes or so, you can hopefully see the best version of that player, at least in that setting, and start to envision what they would look like within your locker room. But I think from the standpoint of being a position coach, from a coordinator running some of the board work, film work, and then obviously as a head coach now sitting beside Kwesi and our coordinators, kind of going through the process. My goal is always the evaluation process for the Minnesota Vikings first and foremost, but I do feel a little bit of a responsibility to try to help these guys go throughout the week, build those relationships, and let them know, regardless of if I end up coaching you guys or not, you've got a supporter in me because I know what you're going through, having gone through it myself.
Well, a quarterback who definitely enjoys talking football is Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
And you're going to have your press conference for the assembled media about 20 minutes from now.
Yep.
And you're going to get hit with Cousins' question or questions. So, I don't know, maybe this can be your combine for that. I'll just lay it out there like that. Fans answer all the time or ask all the time about Kirk. And it seems to be such a fluid situation from afar. And I know you like his skill set, but what are you prepared to face with this press conference with Kirk? And what can you tell us to maybe shed some light on the deal?
Yeah, as far as my feelings on Kirk, they really haven't changed since long before day one on this job. Everybody knows how I feel about Kirk. Love having him as our quarterback. And just thinking back to, he's won a lot of football games over 2 years for us, and thinking about where he was at when he did unfortunately get hurt up there after beating the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field, after winning on Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. I know, in my dialogue, which I've really, had a ton of dialogue with Kirk this offseason, just because I'm going about it like it's just another offseason to build our rapport, build, upon what we've been able to do already together. And look, there's going to be negotiations, and that's the whole point of this time of year. And having, Kirk, has a great agent in Mike McCartney, and we've got Rob and Kwesi that do a really good job with that dynamic communication that goes on. And I do play a role, with my dialogue with the players. So ultimately, I think Kirk wants to be a Viking. I think he knows that we want him to be a Viking. And now, through the process that takes place all the way through the, really the first day of the league year, PA, we can really figure out what that's going to look like, and it's going to be an agreement from both sides, and hopefully we can work to get there, and that is my hope.
Do you believe it's fair to lay it out like this, Kevin? The 2024 and maybe 2025 Minnesota Vikings would be at their best offensively with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, but that doesn't preclude them, your squad, from not taking one anywhere in the draft, and that includes high. Is that a fair way to look at it?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're always evaluating. There's a constant evaluation going on between the short term and the long term and the ramifications of decisions you make. If you're going to take a quarterback in addition to having Kirk on the roster, are you then neglecting another position? And it's
right.
Never a perfect one size fits all type of decision making process with each part of it. But, PA, I can tell you that we're going to do whatever we think is best to not only try to win football games in 2024. That's very important to me and what we've built here in the first 2 years, and really wanting to have a better finish than we did last year. We know we can improve our football team. We can coach better. We can give our guys as much clarity going into each and every game as we possibly can. I feel great about having all three coordinators back and being able to build on some of the schemes that we've put in place that I feel very strongly about. But ultimately, those decisions, whether it's free agency in the draft, you're trying to make short-term and long-term decisions, and make sure you're doing it in the best interest of not only the here and now, but the future as well. And I think you can do both, but it does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of conversation and dialogue with Kwesi and Rob, and I feel very strongly about that, and clearly the support of ownership as well, which has always been something that makes this job so special for me with the Wilf family.
Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, for about 5 more minutes from the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. Peter?
What have you learned about motivating people? I mean, what have you – because that's, again, the big picture when you're the head coach, meeting these guys where they are, developing them that way. That's a relationship that maybe you had a little bit as a coordinator, but you do now. What's your favorite part of that? What about the mental side of the game, developing these guys? What have you learned about that, and what's your philosophy on that, I think, going forward?
Well, I think there's two sides of it. It's first and foremost, it's my favorite part of, being a coach, whether you're a position coach, a coordinator, a head coach. If you're not, inherently a leader, teacher, motivator yourself, then you're probably going to be missing some aspect of doing this job at the level.
Because that player-coach relationship, there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it, and I think that's the beauty of what we've built over the first 2 years. It was very important when we came in here to build our culture and build that foundation. And what that word means, I think it gets thrown a lot. It gets thrown around a lot at those podiums, about 200 feet away from here. But what it really means, it's a living, breathing thing attempting to for the player, by the player, and those guys understanding that everything is being done in the best interest of helping them become the best players that they can become. Because collectively, if you put a lot of individual examples of that together on a team, good things are going to happen. And then that's the joy in it. That's why we wake up early, we stay up late, because we're trying to build a football team. We're trying to individually build up our players, develop them, coach them on the grass when we can, get them in the meeting rooms when we can. But it's about the development of people in a lot of ways, and encouraging them to uplift each other, do things for reasons that are bigger than themselves. There's a lot of cliches that get thrown around, but when you live it and you breathe it, and you can see the benefit that comes from that, I think it becomes just so much ingrained in who you are. To me, that's leadership, because it's got to be a 24/7, 365 type thing, and you got to love everything about it. Because I just talked about it earlier. I want players that love football. They're tough, they're smart, they're accountable to not only their coaches but their teammates and really themselves.
Makes it a little easier.
What am I saying? I'm saying a lot of things.
Well, I'm saying it makes it a little
myself.
easier for you to go to work and have to make the decisions to do those things. Because let's face it, this year you had to reinvent this offense. You had a new leader. I mean, three or four different. You go through 4 different quarters. That's a lot. I mean, that's who you are. It says coach on your shirt. Like Chuck Knox would say, "Don't tell me how rough the waters are. Just bring the ship in." That's no fun. What you did last year was, and you don't have to comment. It's exhausting. It couldn't have. It's no fun at all to have to do that, right?
Yeah, and I think,
and when you can get a good group of guys, at least you can look at them and in the back of your mind, and you don't have to comment on this. But it's like sometimes you have to coach guys you don't like.
Well, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say you don't like, but I would say that you're less comfortable in the moment without the time on task, or really what you've tried to build in a program to adapt on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, or in some cases a short week. It can be difficult, but what I was really proud of was the adversity that we dealt with and how the fight never stopped. Yep. Those guys were battling to the very end. Even in our game, once the playoffs, you're doing a little scoreboard watching. The playoffs. You love to be playing for a chance to go to the playoffs. In week 17. But once that had been decided, trying to be smart about some of our players, like a Justin Jefferson, and seeing his reaction to not getting a chance to play 60 minutes and finish that thing out, because it's an intent. It's a purposeful action by our guys to be all in for each other every single day. And I think as long as we have that going and brewing in our building, we can continue to build the other parts, Pete. And quite frankly, I'm refreshed and recharged and ready to get back to work with our players as soon as possible.
1 minute, 2 questions. What did you advise running back Ty Chandler to work on this offseason? And what did you learn about Brian Flores and the type of defensive player that he requires? I mean, Metellus, Phillips, Danielle Hunter just had the best defensive seasons of their careers. So, what type of player does Flores need?
Well, I think going in reverse order, I would say Flores needs tough, smart, accountable players that are versatile. I think the versatility of our scheme was on full display, reinventing itself to do whatever we thought was best to win individual football games. And I think we can build on that by acquiring some pieces via free agency in the draft that really give him a full complementary toolbox to go to work with. And then with Ty, absolutely love where Ty finished the year. The big thing for him now, year 2 to year 3, is just that every down consistency so that he can get those consistent touches, volume touches in a game. But to do that, he's got to be able to do every phase of our offense consistently with no let-up. What does that look like? Catching the football out of the backfield, blitz pickup, understanding the mental game. I call it that mental warfare that's going on between offense and defense.
Yeah.
Snap in and snap out, PA. But I love where Ty's at. Going to be a big offseason for him. Really, really excited about Ty.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you
very much.
Great seeing you guys.
Yeah, good to see
You too. Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings from the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. Back after this.